Teremos agora a palestra Projeto e Instalação de Sprinklers no Brasil, a visão do usuário. Para proferir, nós vamos chamar Jerry Bozo. Jerry, engenheiro sênior de proteção à propriedade da International Paper. É responsável pela engenharia de proteção à propriedade em mais de 300 plantas de manufatura nas Américas do Norte, América Central e América do Sul. Jerry é membro da Society of Fire Protection Engineers e da National Fire Protection Association.
Well, I guess I have to do something with this microphone first. There's advantages to being short, but one of them is not microphone. Well, thank you again. I hope everybody had a wonderful lunch today. I get to be the first speaker of the day after you do that, so if you are going to fall asleep, you do. Don't pop your heads. And I'm hoping everybody can hear me. I do want to start off with thanking the Congress Committee for allowing me and inviting me to come here and speak on a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And I would also like to say that I'm deeply honored to speak to a group of people who are going to be affecting the future of automatic sprinkler systems here in Brazil for the coming decades. So again, I do appreciate the opportunity, and I really am deeply humbled and honored to do this. Before I go into my presentation, I have a list of things I want to talk about, all kind of preparing you for what I'm about to say. First off, this is not going to be a technical presentation. So I'm going to leave all the technical side of it, and I'm sure most of you have come to see those technical presentations, to those individuals that are a little bit better at it than I am, a little bit more capable than I am in doing that. So there's not going to be any charts, no tables, no graphs. So all you're going to have to do is look at the slides, look at me, although I'm sure that that may be a great problem for some of you, and listen to my voice and listen to those great translators give you the information that I'm trying to give you. So again, you can sit back and relax. This is one time when all you have to do is listen. I'm going to try and use some light humor in presenting some important information. So I hope some of you get a light time out of this and learn as you're enjoying yourself. Presentation is based on my opinion. And it's my opinion based on my experience, the kind of companies I've worked for. During the very beginning of the presentation, I will go over a little bit of my background and my company so that hopefully it'll give you a little bit more confidence in agreeing to what I am about to tell you. I love pictures. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. And so the pictures you'll see in front of you, most of them were taken here in Brazil over the last 15 years. So you can't say, well, that doesn't happen here. Stuff that you're about to see, again, happened at international paper locations. Some we've divested of, some no longer belong with the IP company, but all of them happen in IP, and all of them happen here in Brazil. I do like to use a pointer, and since I can't point at both locations, I'm going to use the screen to my right and your left here to show some pointers. And we're going to start off with an exercise. I want you to look to your left. I want you to look to your right. I want you to look to the front of you and behind you. I didn't see anybody do that. Come on. Come on. Right, left, front, back. And include yourself. I'm going to be talking about experts. I am not the expert. You are the experts that I'm going to be talking about. Because when we talk about clients' expectations, they're going to be coming to you to get the answers. Whether you're in the insurance business, whether you're in the consulting business, whether you're in designer or an installer, the fire service, code officials, they are coming to you for help. To you, when I talk about experts, you are the experts. Okay, so with that foundation, let's start. And I'm hoping I know how to use this thing. There you go. So as I said, we're going to start off with a quick introduction. Some general considerations that you all have to bring to the table that are a foundation for the goals and objectives that I have presented to you, the client expectations. We're going to talk a little bit about what the designer and the installer has to do to meet those expectations, and during the entire program, I'm going to be putting examples throughout there. By all means, please have a little fun when we're going through this, okay? Okay, so a little bit about me. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I've been doing this for over 40 years. I've had 31 years plus with International Paper, and I have other things on my background other than engineering, which includes firefighting, emergency response. I was an EMT, emergency medical technician. I did rope rescue for a while. And I was involved with the government in their local emergency planning committees, which are local organizations run by the government in states to deal with emergencies. International Paper has their headquarters in Memphis, Tennessee. And for most of you, the only reason you know anything about Memphis, Tennessee is because of a famous singer that came from there. Who is it? Elvis Presley. Okay. We have over 1,000 locations located in North, Central, South America, Asia, and Europe. We sell to over 75 countries in the world. We have over 70,000 employees. And I am one of 3 corporate engineers that are responsible for all property conservation at all of these locations, protecting the life and the assets, physical assets of our company. And yes, didn't work. There it goes. I am with corporate, and I am here to help you. Now, why do I show this slide? Well, the purpose of my presentation is that we've got a client that has expectations. I've heard during this conference that most building owners don't want to spend the money to put in sprinklers. I've heard through the conference that most building owners are forced to do it because they either have code issues to deal with, or because they've had an unfortunate incident which had led them to the point where they need to put sprinklers, or they have people like me that say, you will do it. Any way they get there, they get to one simple point. They get to a point where they have to install sprinkler systems. And so they are coming to you, and you are the what? The expert. So regardless how they got to that point, they're coming to you. To round up the introduction as far as International Paper is concerned, we are very intensive as far as capital investment. Each mill runs in the order of between $1 and $2 billion US dollars in value. So we have a lot at stake in this business. We have a lot of stake in making sure that our property and our people are protected. We have a lot of policies and procedures regarding the installation of all fire protection systems, particularly maintaining. You've heard that before during this conference about maintaining systems. Vital. You can spend millions of dollars putting in a sprinkler system, but if they don't work when you need them, they're worthless. We've got a book on all of our property conservation measures, such as hot work procedures, impairments, and things like that, that everyone has to abide by corporate-wide, and we believe very heavily in training our people on how to react to a fire and making sure that the systems are installed and installed properly. In Brazil, we've been in Brazil since 1998. We have 3 integrated mills. What that means is we take the tree and make paper out of it. We have 2 recycle mills where we take recycled product and make paper out of it. We have 1 single line mill, which you actually see here on the screen, where somebody else makes the raw material for us and we make paper out of it. And we now have 4 corrugated operations. Those corrugated boxes that everybody here likes to burn, we make it. Okay, so before we go into the presentation and what I think our clients want from you, I've got some foundation work to build on. So let's go into that. First off, I believe, no matter where you are in the world, clients have the same expectations. The trick is, most of them don't know what it is. They know they've got to put in a sprinkler system, but they really don't know what to expect. So they're coming to you, again, the expert, to help them develop that need requirement. Clients want sprinkler systems to work. They want them to control or extinguish a fire. They don't want an environment where their workers are put in danger. They don't want their employees to take some unusual steps to put a fire out. And clients want to protect their physical assets. I venture a guess that this gentleman on the roof of his house is expending a lot of effort, putting himself in some great danger, but not really doing anything about extinguishing that fire. We don't want that to happen. We want systems in place that are going to extinguish the fire and combat the fire. Clients don't want catastrophic fires, because these incidents lead to the loss of facilities, the loss of equipment, the loss of inventory, and probably more important in many cases is the loss of customers. Because we can insure, we can transfer the risk to the first three. We can't transfer the risk for that last item. Automatic sprinklers is not rocket science, but, and there's a big but there, it's expected to react and function as if it was a parody of rocket science. It's got to be there and ready, and it's got to be designed properly. So I contend if we meet all those basic fundamental platforms to build on, then we'll have a successful project. We'll meet the client's requirements, and we'll all get a chance to celebrate. So let's move on. What are the clients, what I perceive as the client's expectation of you, the expert? I break it down into two basic categories. Project team, which includes you, and the project itself, to design the installation of these things. We'll discuss both of them in more detail as we go through the presentation. But let's look at it from the high level. What are these things that I'm talking about? Project team. Basic requirements or expectation that I believe the project team is going to be looked to in providing the client is they must be professional. They must be technically knowledgeable. They must be capable, client-oriented, and again, the expert. These expectations have elements that can be measured, some can't be measured. All of them are important, whether they can be measured or not. From the project standpoint, basic list of items that I believe that is expected of you or the expert when we come to doing the installation and design of these projects. Got to meet some codes and standards, whatever they are. They've got to be matched with the fire exposure. You don't put an office light hazard sprinkler system into a warehouse. Systems have to be designed and approved, and they have to include a bunch of people, not just the customer. They have to include the client and or their professional advisors. They have to include the insurance company, and where there is applicable, the local code officials have a lot to say in how these systems are designed and installed. Quality system components. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about all of these, but that's a big, broad category. Quality installation. It's got to meet the quality control standards and requirements of the project. Finally, project testing, commissioning, and documentation. Again, something that's sometimes really overlooked. A real thing that has to be done to end the project. And I think I said finally, but here's the real final item. You put together a system, you just don't hand it off. You've got to train these people on how to use it. Because again, you are the expert. They have no idea what these sprinkler systems look like or what they do. So let's talk a little bit more detail about each one of these things, and let's start with the project team. We talked about having a professional and knowledgeable group. Well, professional, how do you gauge that? Sometimes there, again, as I said, sometimes some of the stuff is measurable, sometimes it's not. Well, look, there's a licensing procedure. Certainly going for a licensing, professional license, a business license that indicates that you are a professional in that area, certainly lends to your qualifications as showing that you are a professional. Appearance. If you're going to go to a client to present your proposals, go there with an appearance of authority and understanding. And understand that part of that is how you communicate what you're trying to tell them. Again, understand, you understand these systems. They don't, most times. So you have to communicate. Communicate is making your listener understand what you're trying to tell them. Efficiency. Go in with a set process. How do you evaluate what you need to do? How do you evaluate your design process? How do you evaluate your installation process? Do it such in a way that you can go to it and check box if that's what's required, and have a process in place. Just don't go in and start doing something. Ethical and principled. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, because what I'm trying to tell you here is you've got to have the client's concern and best interest at heart. Knowledgeable. Again, education. If you've got the opportunity to come to things like this, these types of conferences, keep your level of understanding to where it needs to be. It goes a long way to making yourself knowledgeable in current technology and showing that you have maintained that level. Experience. I know sometimes it's hard to turn away a job, but if you are offered a job and you just don't have the experience level to get that done, maybe it's time to say, not for me. Okay? So make sure you're experienced in what you're being asked to do. That includes some of the past types of projects that you've done. Licensing. Again, we talked about licensing as being some way of showing that you're knowledgeable enough in these systems to install them and do it the right way. And then, of course, recommendations from past clients can always go a far distance in showing your client that you've done these things in the past and you're capable of doing it. Got a little bit of an analogy here. Every one of us probably drives a car. And whether or not you drive my favorite car, that Corvette or a Ferrari, or whether or not you're driving a good old Volkswagen Beetle, eventually you're going to have to get it fixed. And you bring it to your mechanic. And you bring it to your mechanic, why? Because you trust that person, you trust he's going to tell you what needs to be done, and he's not going to tell you something more needs to be done when it's not needed. And he's got the technical knowledge to get it done. So it's the same thing with installing a sprinkler system. Again, you're the experts. Some questions that might be good to discuss with your client. Will the end design be the best fit for the client? Is the designer and installer knowledgeable enough to provide a quality system? And does the designer and installer keep track of new technology, which we've just talked about? These are fundamental questions that should be discussed with your client. And I have to raise a question here. Again, I told you, these were all from Brazil and all from international paper. Is this the best fit for that client? Maybe the best and the cheapest way to install it, but is it the best fit for the client? You've got 8 sprinkler risers here, all coming off one alarm check valve and one valve. I would say that, from my standpoint, I wouldn't look at something like this as being the best fit. How about when you get items like this? Designing a sprinkler system for something like this may be a little bit challenging. You've got a peaked roof. Where do you put the pipe in? Do you put the feed main down the center and let the sprinkler branch lines go down the slope, or do you put the feed mains on the eaves and feed up? Well, the cheaper way, obviously, is to put the main down the middle. But is that the best for the customer? Are you leaving that person with a maintenance nightmare? And of course, codes will sometimes direct you on how to install, but sometimes there are codes there to tell you how to install. So again, laying out the pipe for the best fit for the customer's end use is what we are hoping that you will do. Auxiliary drains, other things that are used to maintain the sprinkler system. If you're inside of an inside portion of a building, where are you going to run those auxiliary drains? Where are you going to run the test connections? This is something you need to talk to with your client and determine what is the best place so that you can put together, again, a design that meets the client's requirements. Does your project team, and again, we went over this slightly, have the background to do these projects? Do you have the capabilities, the physical resources, and the human resources to do these jobs? If you take a look at the cooling tower in the picture, are you going to send one person or two people to do that job? Do you have the experience to do that job? How about roll paper storage? How many here have ever put sprinkler systems in a roll paper storage facility? Some may have. But it is a challenging type of job. Look at the bottom picture. Have you any idea how you're going to put a sprinkler system in a 25 to 30 meter high building that houses wood chips that can't be moved out of there, and you've got to put a sprinkler system in there? Do you have the capability? Okay, again, project needs, client-oriented. Talk to your client. Here you've got a warehouse that's partially used for manufacturing. Are you going to take it on yourself to assume that that manufacturing operation is going to stay there? Or are you going to ask the client, hey, is there a possibility you're going to move rolled paper into that area or storage into that area? Because if that's the case, isn't it a better fit to design the entire facility for that higher challenge, rather than having them go back and have to make alterations to the system? How about the conveyor belt? Consideration of how they maintain that system, that manufacturing system, has an impact on where you're going to put your sprinkler pipe. Running it down the middle may be easy, but it may be a maintenance issue for the operator. Running along the side, depending on where you put it, it may become a maintenance issue. So become client-oriented and ask the questions. So now let's move over to the project. One of the most fundamental things that you can do in starting any kind of a project is to meet with your client and meet with their consultants and visit the location where you're going to be doing the installation. Because when you talk to the owner, you also have to make sure that the process owner is involved. What do I mean by that? One person may be responsible for the physical building. Somebody else may be responsible for the equipment and the process in that building. And if you start installing sprinkler systems that interfere with the process and without getting that process owner involved, you're going to be in problems later on. So make sure that you have everyone that needs to be involved with the initial design involved, including the insurance carrier, code officials, and anybody else that has a stake in that design. Also take into consideration the environment that you're in. This picture may be a little bit hard for you to tell, but that's a 40-foot building. Can't do the metal, the meters, but it's a tall building. And we've got storage in that building, and it's a very light construction. So the first question should be raised: can the roof support the sprinkler system? And if not, the client needs to know that. You're their expert. You can tell them, I don't think that that sprinkler system is going to be supported by that roof system. There may be some special hazards that they don't recognize. They've called you in to do a sprinkler system. You go down somewhere and you find all of this nice lubricating oil and hydraulic systems. Maybe a sprinkler system isn't really what they need. Maybe they need a foam system. Maybe they need something else. Again, you are the expert. One of the biggest challenges I think that we face is during the design stage, you need to identify potential obstructions that your system's going to have to contend with. We don't want to end up with obstructions like you see in the lower portion of that picture. And we want to make sure that we've got the proper level of sprinklers in the upper level picture there. Do you put in 2 levels of sprinklers? Do you put a barrier? What do you do? One sprinkler system there may not be enough. The message here is you've got to get all of the information regarding this, regardless of the block of you getting that information. You're going to hit some obstructions in getting information. You're going to have to go as far as you can and get all of the information you can get. I contend that that is a big obstacle there. But I guess I also know some people in the state of Louisiana who love to wrestle with that alligator there. Water tests. Make sure you get a current water test before you start designing anything. The worst thing you can do is design a system, install it, and then find out you don't have enough water. So make sure you start everything with a water test. When you're putting together the design, make sure you do enough field visits to verify your design can fit and can work in the environment that's in. Now again, I've got an arrow pointed to something along here, and unless somebody tells you that's a safety line, you may just want to put your sprinkler piping right there. Well, you can't. You're obstructing a safety device. And if you've gone through the process of designing it, and you start installing it, and find out that you're going to have to move the piping, you've just wasted a lot of time and money and effort. So make sure you understand the process and the equipment that you're putting sprinklers around. Also try and understand the equipment and the implications that they bring to the project. Identify installation conflicts. Make sure that if they have maintenance outages, they work with you or work against you. You may have to wait 6 weeks to get into a piece of equipment before you can start installing, and you'll only have 12 hours to get the installation. Then you'll have to wait another 6 weeks. You have to build that into the project, and you have to understand this before you go into the project. And by all means, safety has to be a recognized issue you have to address. Safety for your people, safety for the client's personnel. You do not want to put somebody in harm's way to install a sprinkler pipe. When you get all the information, now it's time to start the design. You've got to start with the design package. And what's a design package? In general, it's the project scope. It's blueprints, or what we used to call blueprints, CAD drawings, calculations, technical data sheets. We heard during the conference where you have to use the technical data sheets to understand your sprinkler heads and so on. Equipment list. What kind of equipment? How much? Where are they going? Project timelines. And again, work with the client to make sure they understand this information. I show this computer because it reminds me of when I was in college. This is the kind of computer I used to use. That was my laptop computer there. And I always wondered what that steering wheel was for. I never could figure that out. I don't know what that's a support or if it's somebody turns and a hatch opens. I'm not sure. And I'm almost feeling like I'm going to say, beam me up, Scotty, but I won't do that. Okay, again, during the design phase, make sure you have multiple review meetings with the client and their representatives. Final design must be reviewed and approved. And it's too late to have it a final approval when you haven't gotten all of the pre-approval documentation and approvals from the client involved. Again, make sure the owner understands what he's getting or she's getting. The process owner understands what they're getting. Insurance company, local code officials, and whoever else has to approve that project. Make sure they are on board and the approvals are received. Quality equipment. I doubt very much that very many people would install sprinklers like this, but it's the point. We talked about these counterfeit sprinkler heads, we talked about unlisted equipment, there's no place for them. You've got to have quality equipment. Not only do you have to have quality equipment, you have to use the right kind of equipment. The lower picture shows an installation that was done, and within 6 weeks, we had a failure of multiple hanging systems. And the reason for it wasn't recognized that there was a lot of vibration going on in this building. And the bolts worked themselves right off the hanger. Okay, so maybe it should have been a double locking nut, or maybe it should have been something else. But again, use quality equipment and the right type of equipment. I include this kind of photograph in these comments regarding quality equipment because installation and fabrication is part of quality equipment. If you're drilling holes in the pipe, we will not, and I say we, I say international paper, and I'm sure many clients, will not accept the pipe unless there's a coupon, that little circled equipment right there accompanying the hole. So make sure that that's with it, because we've had to take pipes down and make sure that the holes in the pipes were there and not blank, and none of these coupons were inside. Don't make adjustments to your piping. If you made a mistake, that upper picture shows somebody made the wrong pipe length. So they thought they'd go in and weld a piece onto it. No, wrong approach. Make sure if you're going to be doing welding, that you've got quality control of all your welding, that you've got quality procedures, you've got a review process. 100% inspection is sometimes needed in these things. We cannot take those little burrs that you see in that hand to get caught into a sprinkler system. One of those little things can obstruct the sprinkler. So again, welding is a very, very important part of these systems, and they must be controlled with a lot of quality control. It may even mean that a job needs a specific quality control manager. How you store and deliver piping is important. I don't know if you can see it in the picture there, but one of them has got debris inside the pipe. Another set of pipe there is stored right next to a pile of dirt. That dirt's going to get moved, and guess where it most likely will go? On top of the pipe. And then you've got debris in the pipe. Installing contractors have to have good quality control procedures documented and followed. And again, sometimes that means you're going to have a quality control supervisor and an audit procedure at some of these larger jobs. Installation starts at the ground. Again, these are actual pictures of jobs that we took at part of our facilities. Dirt inside the pipe. Underground pipe being installed without any safeguard about dirt getting into the pipe. Here's somebody's attempt to prevent that from happening, but I would contend that that's a little and not enough. What's going to hold that piece of wood in place? What happens if they're gone for a week and somebody starts filling that ditch with dirt? You've got to make that more secure. Quality installation. Again, during the process, you've got to get involved with the client. You've got to make sure that you've got a way of determining whether or not the installation is going in as you expected. What's wrong with this picture? Part of your installation should be identifying these things. That second riser has no support. All of that weight is on the first riser. The kind of things that you need to catch. Now, we're probably supposed to have a support, but nobody installed it. Again, obstructions, big issue. If you're putting in a job and you see that there's obstructions coming your way, stop the job. Stop that portion of it. If you identify places where your prints show there's no sprinklers, ask the question, why aren't there sprinklers underneath that area or in that area? Make sure that you review and approve and document any changes that are made from field discoveries. It's another quality control issue. Can anybody see that? I don't know if you can see that. What's the orientation of that alarm check valve? Are we supposed to maintain that through the building levers and ventilation system? Which way is front? Okay. Somebody installed this almost 180 degrees out of rotation and expected us to accept it. When the system's finally installed, make sure you go through a rigorous testing and commissioning process. Make appropriate appointments, make sure everybody's there that needs to be there, and then do the test. These tests are important. They prove the installation that you put in will react properly in a fire situation. There's plenty of material out there to help you with this. And FBA has a whole group of standards that help you through this. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but there is help out there to help you understand what needs to be done in the commissioning process. If there's problems, fix it. Don't put a Band-Aid on it. Make sure it doesn't happen again and retest. That's your obligation. When the system is finally installed, make sure it's operational. Here's a system that's installed, but everybody can recognize the valve is shut. Is the job over? No. You didn't leave it in full service. Another part of this is, what's the client's and what's your process for following impaired systems? How do you document when you've got a system out of service? Important. The client may be depending on you. System documentation, as-built drawings, final hydraulic calculations, spare parts list, important, but again, so often overlooked. What do I need to maintain this system? User's manuals, instructions, and maintenance manuals. Training. Another big item that gets left off the project so many times. You've just left this person that mess of piping on that sprinkler system. How do you expect them to understand how that thing works? You have to educate them. You're the expert. They're not. They know that they've got a system that's supposed to work, but how do I know it's going to work? How do I maintain it? You've got to train them how to use it and maintain it properly. So in summary, who's the expert here? You must be all asleep. Come on, who's the expert here? Raise your hands. You are all the experts. We're depending on you. We're expecting you to provide a professional, knowledgeable service. We're expecting you to understand that quality designs are important. Quality testing, components, and installation are important. They're expecting that the installer leaves them a system that's reliable and it's going to extinguish and control a fire. And with that, I hope that there's some questions. I guess not. So I hope it was informative, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the conference to attend.